Hey ghouls and gals, welcome back to my channel. My name is Taylor and today is the start of another reading vlog. You've heard me talk about my current read so much that I'm just gonna gloss over it really quickly. Reading plans for this week include finishing A Day of Fallen Night by Samantha Shannon. I'm absolutely loving this. I'm taking my time because it's just like perfection to me. I only have about 200 pages left in this epic fantasy and then I'll be done, and I will have to wait such a long time for the next Samantha Shannon release because she does take her time to craft these masterpieces, but I'm hoping to finish that either today or tomorrow. And then after I finish that, I'm not quite sure what book I'll pick up next, but these two books I do have also checked out, both physically from my library and then the audiobook from my library as well via Libby. So yeah, I've got these two. We have Malice House by Megan Shepherd. This one is a horror, I'm guessing haunted house horror based on the title. And then also The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi by Shannon Chakraborty. And this is a fantasy and a pirate themed fantasy, I believed. Both are exciting to me, and I definitely want to listen to the audiobook, especially when I get into a book that I'm really enjoying. You can't read physically all the time, so if I'm driving or cooking dinner or doing something where I can't physically hold a book, I also like reading the audiobook at the same time as the book, especially for fantasies. I do really like getting character pronunciations and everything with the audiobook. So when I'm reading it in my head, I'm reading the correct pronunciations of the characters' names. And since, you know, I'm using my library for the physical and via Libby, it is all free. So I do like switching back and forth between both formats. That's how I've been doing most of my reading this year. It's been a lot of fun. So I don't know what mood I'm going to be in once I finish A Day of Fallen Night, so we'll have to see. I even wouldn't be surprised if it was neither of these books based on me being a mood reader, but we're gonna try and stick to a little bit of a TBR in this vlog, just to get some library books read, and obviously Libby holds especially. You get them, you have them for a little bit, and then it can be months, especially with new buzzy releases, before you get them again. So I am hoping to get to these in this reading vlog, but we'll have to see. Just wanted to come on and give a quick introductory clip to the vlog before it starts downpouring. I think it's going to start raining for most of the next few days, it looks like, based on the forecast. So enjoying this natural light while we have it, and before it gets very dark and atmospheric. Perfect weather for reading. Not so perfect weather for recording with natural light. So that is why I wanted to kind of hop on here, talk about what I'm reading. Very excited for all of these. I have just been in such a good reading mood, and I've been reading really good books, and I've been really ruthless about DNFs as well, which has helped my good reading mood. I used to give books about 50 to 100 pages before I DNF'd. Now I give it like 10, and I feel like you just know after 10 pages whether or not, especially when it comes to DNFs about like the author's tone or writing style, that's not going to change within the first 10 pages. So plot wise, if I'm not sure, I'll read on longer than that, but definitely for like writing style and just vibe, I guess, of the book, 10 pages, I don't like it, I'm putting it down, I'm moving to the next one. So I am in a good reading mood. I'm excited to read a lot of good books for this vlog, and that's gonna be my introductory clip. I'm gonna go dive into this behemoth over here and hopefully finish it soon, and have a new favorite book of the year, and I will talk to you all later. So it has been more than a couple of days since I last updated this vlog because I do live in Little Rock, Arkansas. And this Friday we had some very severe tornadoes. We still might get some throughout this week. So definitely my weekend did not go how I anticipated. Luckily I was working from home when we got all of the notifications to shelter in place. I was very glad I was already at home because my dog is very, very anxious. So we sheltered in place together, and then luckily my partner was working somewhere where they actually really got missed altogether. So both of us, all of my coworkers, friends, everyone like that I know, luckily we're all good, but it was a very large tornado that came very close to us. So yes, definitely a very different start to the weekend than I was kind of anticipating. And then today's Tuesday, so we had pretty severe storms on Monday. Tonight we're also supposed to get some severe storms carrying out into the next morning, so we'll just have to see. Oh, I love the spring. It's great, isn't it? But I did get some reading in. I do have some reading updates. So thankfully, life update, I'm good. Tornado missed us by like a couple blocks. So that's always scary, but all's well that ends well, I suppose. In terms of that, we were very lucky, and I did finish my favorite book that I've read this year so far, A Day of Fallen Night by Samantha Shannon. I have now raved about this for 2 vlogs straight now, and I don't think I've ever given a synopsis because epic fantasies, I feel like they're kind of hard to give synopsises for, even though I read them all the time. It's hard to capture the scope of an epic fantasy in just a short little blurb. But essentially this is the standalone prequel to Priory the Orange Tree. It was a very, very popular book that came out, I think 2019 now, and it re-emerged on Book Talk, I feel like, this year a little bit as well. Epic fantasy in a queer normative feminist world. And this book we are following 4 different main characters, as they're all in very different places in this world as they start to experience both a plague and a resurgence of creatures from within the Earth's crust, some dragon-like, some dragons, just dragons in general, coming to wreak havoc and bringing about an age of violence that all of these characters have to kind of struggle with, both on their own terms in living in those times and trying to stop those times, and then also they all have significant positions of power within their own, whether it be queendoms or democracies or empires, whatever. They all have a great deal of power, and with great power comes great responsibility, and they all kind of have to figure out how to wield that and kind of figure out also the power between responsibility for your empire or kingdom or family, and then your responsibility and duty towards your own autonomy. And this also has a ton of mothers and daughters and conversations about motherhood and just your body's own personal agency and all kinds of different choices that mothers make. So yeah, beautifully told fantasy, one of my favorites of the year. Absolutely loved it. So I finished this on, I want to say Saturday, whatever day April 1st was, I finished it. I tried to fit it in with my March reading, and I didn't want to rush it. So April 1st I finished this one. And then another book I'm going to kind of quickly gloss over because I was actually not the biggest fan of it in the end, but I figured I'd mention it anyway since I did read it this weekend. That would be Malice House by Megan Shepherd. This is a horror/thriller about a woman who moves into her father's house. He was a writer. He's recently passed, left her the house called Malice House, and she's an illustrator. She's kind of also hard on her luck. She's running away from unfortunate family situations of her own. She thinks cleaning out her late father's home will be an excellent project and just like a way way to kind of reconnect with him and keep her mind off of her current situation, she finds this very strange manuscript in her father's place, which he was like a literary writer. He wrote very highbrow things, and this book that she finds, the manuscript, is called Scary Stories for Monsters, Bedtime Stories for Monsters. And it's all about things that go bump in the night. And then she learns from her father's caretaker that he started having delusions and was seeing things and hearing things towards the end of his life. And as she starts to experience things in the house, she starts to wonder if the things that her father was writing about in these bedtime stories for monsters might actually be real. So the premise sounds good. This was definitely, I feel like, a lot more thrillery with paranormal elements as opposed to a horror. Kind of wish it would have delved more into the horror aspects of it. I just don't feel like this author's writing style is just like one I particularly meshed with. I tried it both reading it physically and then listening to the audiobook as well, and just both ways, like, the ideas were there and I was interested, but I felt like the ideas, and obviously this is the writer's book, I haven't written a book, but like every single way that I wanted things to go, it went the other way. And there are some reveals in here where I could kind of see coming and was kind of like, oh, I hope it's not that. And just some interesting commentary that I think was strangely placed in there, and just like the main character's inner monologue was just not fun to be a part of. And yeah, it didn't exactly suit me, but it was a fairly fast read. I would almost say this is like great vacation horror. Like for me, I don't like romance as a beach read. This would be a really good beach read. It just ended up being one of those where the premise was super intriguing, and then just the execution for me, it just was not my kind of story, unfortunately, which is kind of a bummer because I've been waiting a really long time to read this one because the audiobook at my library didn't have that long of a wait on Libby, but I have a suspicion that someone put their phone on airplane mode for a very long period of time, because like I was on the wait list for this, and initially it was 8 weeks, and I had some other books on hold that were like 12 weeks or several months, and I kept getting those books, and this just kept sitting at 8 weeks, and then it jumped to 6 weeks, and then it stayed at 6 weeks for quite a long time. This came out in, I think, October of last year, and I was like at the same wait list on the Libby list until like this week. So I have a hunch that someone was using airplane mode to make that list go by not as fast. So unfortunately this was not as good, but honestly nothing that I was gonna read was going to be as good as A Day of Fallen Night, because I had picked up another fantasy. I tried reading it and I just was like, I can't read this right now because I'm gonna be making comparisons no matter how hard I try. So I'm putting a couple books in between A Day of Fallen Night and my next fantasy read, because that's just not fair to the next fantasy book that I pick up, because none of them are gonna compare, honestly. So yeah, this was kind of a bummer, but you know, you win some, you lose some. But the next book that I ended up picking up, and this one I am in the middle-ish of, is Bad Cree by Jessica Johns. And this one I think is going a lot better for me than Malice House did, and it is pretty short, so I feel like, just based on it's small and it's also short, that I should finish this soon. And I am really liking the storytelling style of this as well. So this is also a horror, just like Malice House was, but this is a horror that we're following a woman who is having very disturbing dreams, and in these dreams they're not only very vivid, but if she like grabs a branch from a tree, she wakes up in bed and she has the branch still in her hand, and these dreams keep escalating, and she starts seeing her sister, who is pretty recently deceased. And so being plagued by these dreams, this woman, who is Cree, and that is very important to this story, it is called Bad Cree for a reason, because she believes, in a lot of ways, she keeps asking herself, is she a bad Cree, because of a lot of things that happened in her past, and then also her sister's death shook her so hard she didn't go home for the funeral. So because of all of these just different guilts and feelings that she has towards her family, very complex feelings, our main character Mackenzie has a lot of doubt about herself and about whether these dreams are real or not, whether maybe I haven't like figured this out yet, and I don't know how much I want to give away, but like there's a lot surrounding her sister's death, and I don't know how much of that is how her sister died yet, or if it is, you know, even if there's no sort of mystery surrounding that, having your sister die is traumatic. So just there's a lot to process for our main character, and her family hears about these dreams. She is telling them about these dreams, and what I love about this, that I feel like is a horror trope, in which, you know, you're having these real events happen to you, these real paranormal events happen, and no one believes you. This is not the case. Her aunties, her family, her cousins, and her mom are like, no, these are probably real. Let's figure out what's going on with your dreams and why you're seeing your dad's sister. So she goes back to her family home, where she has not been in quite some time, and is going to try and figure out these dreams and what exactly they mean. So I want to say I'm maybe 30% of the way through this one, and I am very much enjoying it. And this one is in first person. I will say I'm not usually the biggest fan of first person narratives, but this one's working very well. I think when I said in Malice House, one of the things that I didn't like about it was I didn't like our main character. I didn't like her monologues. Malice House was in first person as well, and I did not like being in the head of that main character. I do like being in the head of this main character. She's very fascinating, and even though I feel like they're both kind of unlikable protagonists for their own reasons, I feel like this one's written a whole lot better, and I am just very, very intrigued by this one. So I'm going to go read this, and I will talk to y'all later. Hello vlog. So I did finish Bad Cree by Jessica Johns, and I really enjoyed this. This worked for me, and it's put me in such a horror mood. I don't want to give too much more about it than what I did in my last update, because it is a shorter novel, and I just really enjoyed it. One of my absolute favorite parts about this was our main character Mackenzie and her family dynamics, and her just all of her family members. This book, again, very short, but you get like a very real sense of different actualized characters. They're very strong character voices. You can tell her aunties apart. You can tell her sister apart from her cousin, from her mother. Like, this was really well done character work in terms of horror, and I just loved how, I don't think this is too much of a spoiler, but just in terms of, I guess, thematic tropes, how usually the trope is you don't have a support system from your family doesn't believe you when you say supernatural things are happening. That does not happen in here. Her family is very wonderful. They still do have a little bit of a complex history that you do go through, a little bit of shared family trauma as well. So her family dynamics and relationships aren't perfect, but it's that just, I just love it. I love a supportive family in literature, and I love a supportive and very real family. Like, this feels like a real family. They're not a perfect family by any means, and they don't always, you know, like get along. There's definitely some tension, especially when it comes to making big decisions, especially when it comes to our character and kind of reckoning with things she has done in the past that maybe she's not so proud of. But yeah, I really enjoyed this, and I'll definitely be checking out more from this author, and like I said, has put me in a horror mood. Also, for that trigger warning, there's definitely like some very unexpected body horror that was very gross, and I was listening to the audiobook and like wanting to gag. So effective horror, but just keep that in mind, because I feel like from the synopsis you may not get that, like you may not be expecting any body horror. It is mostly paranormal, supernatural horror, but it does have some elements of that, so just, you know that going in. And I said I wanted to read more horror, and I have 2 horror books to choose from, just because today's Friday, I have the day off work because it is Good Friday. That doesn't mean anything to me, but I will take a day off. And I kind of feel like I have enough time and just am in enough of a reading mood, and both of these books are short enough where I feel like I could potentially finish them today or get most of the way through them today. So I have two haunted house books that I'm really excited to read. I'm in the mood for a good haunted house horror, so it is between these two books. So one hand we have A House with Good Bones by T. Kingfisher. This is an author that I've really read from and loved before. I think I've read now 3 or 4 things by T. Kingfisher, and none of them have disappointed. I've really enjoyed them all, and they've all been very different kind of subgenres of horror, so that's interesting. And the other one is The Spite House by Johnny Compton, and this one is from a debut author, so I haven't read anything from this author before, but both of these have the premise of a haunted house, and since I cannot choose between the two of them, I am actually going to have my dog choose. And so yeah, we're gonna have Brucey choose the next book that I'm going to read this week, so let's go do that. Going over to Brucey's corner. Bruce, are you ready to help me pick my TBR? Will you help me pick my TBR? Will you help me pick what book to read? Okay, so we are going to set these out so that they both move all other distractions out of the way. And then obviously we have to go for, you probably can't see it because there's a sunny window behind me, but we have to go for a big ticket treat here. Essentially dog Oreos. Oh my goodness. So we have my very good puppy. We have my very good puppy. But can you actually come on here, Bruce? Oh, come in here and sit, sit, stay, stay. And we are going to place one on each of them. Stay, Bruce. Stay. Okay, can you go grab a treat? Go grab a treat. Yeah. Good boy. You can grab one. Oh, okay. Are we reading The Spite House? We're reading The Spite House. Thank you, Bruce. Let the tail go. Yes. Yes, we're gonna read The Spite House. So I am going to start this. Very excited. I finished Spite House and I loved it. For me, this hit like a lot of paranormal tropes that I tend to like. In particular, a main character that you may or may not trust was a past that you don't quite know a lot about, taking their family, moving into a haunted house where things start going paranormal. This was a really excellently paced book, as well as, even though we don't get a lot of space with the characters, a lot of time with the characters, there were flawed characters that you really cared about. And the situation that brings the family to this house and why they can't leave or why they don't leave are very unique, because I know I love this genre, I love haunted house horror, but sometimes you're like, why are you not leaving? There's a really good explanation, there's really good backstory. I really enjoy little kid characters. I know some people don't, and I think there's a very precious child character in this that is a main character. You know, sometimes little kids, just depending on the way that they're written, can be a little bit annoying, but I did really enjoy the way both children are written. There's one who's, I guess, technically an adult, I believe. She's 18, but I think she's still pretty much a child. Very creepy, very unsettling. I'll definitely be checking out more by this author. This is another Tor Nightfire release, and I've said it before, I'll say it again. Tor Nightfire is like my favorite horror imprint. I just know that even if I don't like the book, I know that there's going to be a great audience for it, and like a specific audience for it. That may not be me, but like they just find the coolest horror releases to release or re-release, because they've done that as well. So yeah, I really really enjoyed this, and that's going to be the end of this vlog. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up, leave a comment down below, subscribe to my channel for more content from me. Stay safe, stay spooky, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye!